Book 3 The Cedars of Argas. Chapter 17 The First Vow. A new soil, a new breath, the earth continues. The Sacred Beginning. Created by Red Cardinal Kitchen. All genre writing. The geography of Argas. When the weight of Rainbow Planet pressed upon old Earth, the blow did not crush, it folded. The land that had once been the western edge of a great continent bent inward, its valleys sealed under layers of glowing sediment. Now Argas lies beneath a translucent vault, a dome of mineral glass and clouded crystal that catches the refracted light of Rainbow's underbelly. The sky here is neither day nor night but an amber hush, a long afternoon where light drifts sideways through the air. The temperature never rises beyond a mild warmth, never cools past a dew-wet dawn. A permanent mist drifts through the lowlands, carrying the scent of fern and wet clay. Springs thread across the basin like veins of glass. The largest springs flow from fractures where molten stone once moved, their waters clear, mineral-rich, and faintly luminous at night. Moss, reeds, and vine flowers climb the cracked walls of fallen buildings. Tiny creatures, glass-winged moths, root beetles, pale frogs, nest in hollows and drains. Nothing here is as it was, but all of it is alive. To the north, the ridgeline of old mountains holds pockets of forest, where cedar and myrtle twist together in green silence. To the south, the plain opens into a salt-flaked expanse that once was a highway. It glitters faintly under the filtered light, and sometimes mirages of waves shimmer where no sea remains. The market of Argas stands near the valley's heart, its sign half buried, its courtyard broken open by the spring that saved them. Around this place the survivors gather, 150 souls, soot-streaked, uncertain, but breathing the same air. They have found chickens wandering the edges of the road, a few goats and a single tired horse. They have found fields still holding buried seed, grains lying dormant through heat and ash, waiting for hands to turn them. The rivers hum faintly beneath the soil. If one kneels and listens, the ground itself sounds like a sleeping heart. The Sacred Inheritance. No one names it miracle, only mercy. For whatever force folded this land did so with care, preserving one cradle of breath beneath the ruin of worlds. The people who remain do not know why they were spared, nor how long this pocket of light will last. They only know the truth written beneath their feet, that the ground remembers what it means to feed life. Everything is sacred now. Water, seed, animal, word. Each act must be chosen as if the earth were watching. To drink is to give thanks. To plant is to remember. To build is to promise. And from this reverence, their first vow will rise. The vow. The cedars of Argas. We vow to keep the spring clear, that its water may remember clean hands and unbroken trust. We vow that no hand will hoard the seed, for the earth feeds all who honor her. We vow to build from what endures, stone, soil, and the quiet strength of one another. We vow to quarrel less than we labor, for peace is the first harvest of a healed people. We vow that every mouth shall eat before the fires go out. That hunger shall never sleep while a single loaf remains. We vow to treat all things as sacred. Water, plant, animal, wind, and word alike. We vow to remember that seed is not only food, but thought, breath, and promise carried forward. And we vow to keep this earth as it keeps us, with patience, mercy, and light enough to grow. The still morning, the wind carried a smell of iron and rain. What remained of the town crouched beneath a sky the color of tin. No one knew what had happened beyond the hills, only that everything else was gone. Ash clung to boots and to breathing. A single spring bubbled from a crack in the street, its water clear and warm as breath. Someone whispered, "It's still running." That was enough to start a day. enough to believe the earth had chosen to keep them. The hills of Argas curved like the palm of a hand cupping them from above. The great weight that had fallen, the world they once called rainbow, hung high and dim across the heavens, its vast light turning the sky to a long dusk. Here, the air was thin but kind. The soil broke easily, dark and ready. Nothing beyond these ridges stirred, and yet the land felt watched over, as if the earth itself had decided which small corner to keep. They did not yet call themselves cedars. They were simply the ones who woke, and began again on the only soil that remembered them. Counting what remains, they moved through the ruins in silence, pockets filling with nails, rope, and dented cans of beans. The market roof sagged but held. Inside were sacks of grain, a few tools, and the faint scent of ash and iron. Jalen's lifted a rusted spade, its edge dull but honest. "We can turn the soil again," he said. Susan knelt beside a toppled shelf, gathering what the fire had spared. A crate of bandages, a box of chalk, 3 knives, and a torn book of children's songs still smelling of smoke. Each finding was spoken aloud, counted, and laid upon a folded blanket so every eye could see what had survived. They wrote the list upon a broken door and leaned it against the spring's edge. Their first ledger, their first law. What remains, we share. The land beneath the light. The weight that fell did not crush Argas flat. It folded the land inward, like the palm of a hand cupping a flame. They lived now on the curve beneath that sheltering hand, where light lingered but never fully burned. Above them hung the great shadow of Rainbow's underbelly, vast and dim, turning slow as a second moon. Its pull held the air close, a thin breath the soil could still live by. The sky was a long dusk, a soft and endless afternoon where seeds still woke. And water remembered how to rise. The air carried a quiet gold, and the ruins cast shadows too kind to fear. Moss clung to what endured. Rivers glowed faintly at night, fed by minerals and patience. No one called it miracle, only mercy. This land was once a map of borders, but the weight had made it one plane, one work, one vow. Argas, half in shadow, half in light, the place the earth decided to keep. Dividing the work. By midday, the smoke had thinned and the wind no longer carried ash. Jalen stood at the edge of the cracked market and called out, "Strong backs with me. We search for wood, metal, anything that can shape or hold water." Men and older boys stepped forward, their shadows stretching long across the broken road. Susan turned to the others, her voice calm but firm. We stay. We cook, we clean, we keep the children busy. If fear comes, give it a task. An old woman from the far coast raised her hand. I can weave grass into rope, she said. A man whose accent no one placed answered. I once built houses from mud and straw. They'll hold again. No one asked where anyone came from. The earth they stood on was all the country that remained. The spring that had cracked open the market's edge now ran like glass through the broken street. Susan knelt beside it, sleeves rolled, showing the children how to dip their cups without muddying the bank. No one walks in it, she said. The water remembers clean hands. The older women laid stones to guide the flow, shaping channels that would feed cooking, washing, and the small gardens to come. Around them, smoke thinned into a blue silence. It was the first quiet work since the world had fallen. Not a prayer, but something close. And as Jalen's and the men gathered tools at the market's edge, Susan's steady voice by the spring became the first rhythm of Argas learning how to live again. The discovery of seed as currency. The small boy, Marcel, stumbled and dropped a sack of grain. The kernels scattered across the market floor, clicking like rain on stone. People bent to gather them, careful not to crush a single one. Susan knelt beside him, brushing the dust from his hands. Each seed is food, she said, but if we eat them all, the ground will have nothing left to give back. Her voice was calm, yet something in the way she spoke made those nearby pause. As if the boy's name, Marcel, carried a weight they could not yet name. Jalen's looked up from the beams he was shaping nearby. He held one kernel between his fingers, studying it against the muted light. This, he said quietly, is worth more than metal. It can rebuild what no hammer can. He turned back to his work, fitting salvaged wood and bent iron into the frame of a small storehouse. The younger men watched and followed, laying planks, binding joints with twisted grass and strips of hide. An idea passed between them like a spark. Seed is life, seed is trade. From that moment, every pocket became a purse of grain. To share a seed was to promise survival. Water law. At the edge of the market, the spring ran steady, steam curling from its surface. Susan placed stones around it in a perfect ring. She lifted a shard of tin and scratched words into its face. Water is sacred, no foot may enter. They built troughs from roof gutters so no one would step inside the circle. 2 young men stood watch in turns. They bowed, not from religion, but from respect. Every mouth that drank whispered, "Thanks to the earth, not the sky." The first exchange. Near sundown, the scouts returned. They brought copper wire, shattered panels, and bits of machinery that still smelled of oil. One man carried a live hen, another, a handful of nails. Instead of coins, they set seeds, scraps, and promises on a cloth at the fire's center. A bean for a loaf, a strip of fabric for a cup. Nothing was wasted, nothing was owned. Susan wrote in the ledger, "Seed given, seed returned." The ink caught the firelight like a faint reflection of water. The first meal. Night came quickly under the rainbow haze. They boiled water in a dented pot, stirred grain until it thickened, and passed the bowl from hand to hand. No one spoke until everyone had eaten. Then Jalen stood. "This is day 1, he said. "We live by the vow." They repeated the lines together, their voices low but certain. Above them, the stars looked newly made, bright seeds scattered across a sky that finally remembered how to breathe. So began the rebuilding. Simple tasks turned to law, and labor turned to peace. They would wake with the first dim light, gather, mend, plant, and guard. Each motion a prayer the earth could understand. Argas had no rulers, only workers, and that was enough to keep the world turning. The spring sang through its stones, and smoke rose straight into the long dusk, as if even the air had chosen to be still. The fires sank to embers. Children slept against their mothers' knees. The spring whispered behind its stones, its song mingling with the hush of the night wind. Susan closed the ledger and murmured, "We worked. We shared. We did not fight." Jalen's nodded once. "Then we begin again at dawn." The night answered with its own small vow. A hush across the camp, a breath between the last flicker of flame. And the first wind of morning. It was not silence, but something older. The memory of what waits to be spoken again. If you have arrived here for the first time, welcome to Argas, the land folded beneath the light, where ruin became the first garden. Here the soil is red-brown and damp with minerals, stitched with roots of wild sorrel and soft reeds. Springs cut through the stone in clear ribbons, and the air tastes faintly of salt and iron. Fruit trees from the old world still cling to life. Fig, olive, persimmon, and plum. Their branches bowed but unbroken. Between their shadows, the first new sprouts rise: barley, corn, lentil, and amaranth. The beginnings of food, faith, and trade. No coins move in Argas. Seeds have taken their place. Each one a promise, a pulse of future breath. A handful of grain buys a loaf, a sprig of mint buys kindness, and a shared harvest buys trust. Clothing comes from flax and grass fiber, shelter from mud brick, packed clay, and song. All things are sacred: the water that runs, the soil that receives, the animals that graze, the words that hold them together. Even the silence between voices is tended as one tends a young field. Carefully, faithfully. They now call themselves seeders, for they learned that a seed is more than harvest. It is memory, breath, and promise. Every seed planted in soil is also planted in thought. Every act of tending keeps the world from ending. And though they cannot yet recall why the word hush feels holy in their mouths, something in their hearts knows it is the sound once made when a rocket tried to leave the earth. If you listen closely, you may still hear that same hush moving through the fields. A memory of breath, a whisper of return. You are welcome here among them. Every reader, too, is a seeder. Welcome, newcomers, to Red Cardinal Kitchen. Here, every story shared becomes part of the Cardinal Archive Memory Temple. If our stories move you, we are grateful. Thank you for the kindness you share, and may something sacred continue to grow. Red Cardinal Kitchen, all genre writing.